feeling better this week?
Yeah. This week I got a cane.
Well, you didn't
Next
have the
week,
cane last week.
but I have a, what are they, a cane or a walk?
I don't remember. It was a walk up at you're here.
Okay.
So did you just have surgery?
Yeah, fine.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
Last time we learned about stance, correct alignment, and some of the other basic fundamentals. Today we're going to focus on stroke. Okay. The one image that I'd like to get in your mind, and if you don't have your cue, maybe you could go grab it right now. You know, I used to know a basketball player at a college that he would carry his basketball around the entire day going to school just to get the cue.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, just holding a cue, especially if it's your own cue and stuff, can really kind of connect you with that cue. And I know it sounds kind of spiritual or something like that, but it really does impact. Like, you know, when I play, I would be lost without my cue. Because I feel another one, and I feel all these subtle differences and things like that. But today I'm going to do a little review on what we learned last time, but we're really going to focus on stroke. And believe it or not, they've actually done research, you know, where they watched players play and they timed their strokes. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I'm talking about you're doing your warm-up strokes like this. You do a slight pause before the actual stroke. What they found was poor players are much, much quicker than good players. And what they found was that poor players actually complete a stroke in 0.3 to 0.6 seconds. You know, jabbing like that. You know, quick and all that. Where professionals, great players, were like 1.3 to 1.6 seconds. Smooth. Like a pendulum of a clock that swings all the way back. It's so important in the stroke and pool to complete that backswing. Too often you're in a hurry, just like you are when you jump up on a shot. You're in a hurry to take it back real quick and then quickly get it through. And that's the absolute worst thing you can do. And that's something that's going to take time, because a lot of us have that ingrained in our brains. You know, we've played a certain way for a long time. But simply, when you watch a pendulum on a clock, how many have a clock like that at home? All right, cool. When you see that pendulum swing back, what does it do when it gets to it slows down or stops, right? That's what I mean by completing the stroke. And to make it do that, number one issue is to have a nice gentle grip on the cue. All right? So when I swing it back, notice the cue ball, the cue stick stays level. Okay? When I swing it back, it stays level because my wrist hinges. And then when I release the cue all the way through, it kind of slides through my hand and also stays level. Now that death grip on the cue changes all that, doesn't it? Because then it's like almost up and down, isn't it? Songwood or something like that. So you can see that Willie Mastoni, 15-time world champion, said that holding a cue is like holding maybe a styrofoam cup in your hand, real gentle. And when I think of the grip on the cue, I simply, these last two fingers are only along for the ride. My thumb and these two fingers are on the cue. And you'll see as I stroke back and forth, it's not at all tense or rigid. All you need is enough pressure so the cue doesn't fall out of your hand. And I know that sounds real weak, but like I mentioned last time, pool is a non-tension sport. When you watch a good player play, you'll almost notice that they have a rhythm. almost like a dance moving around the table. And they're breathing, they're relaxing. You know, it's a game in which you need to focus your attention, not, you know, be aware of being stressed out and rigid. That's why I always say when you're doing a good pre-shot routine, you'll notice that a lot of good players, and people have noticed this about me, they'll say, oh, I noticed you breathing when you were shooting, you know, like taking a deep breath and so forth. And we all know how important breathing is. It almost, when you learn to breathe when you're doing some form of competition, you realize there's a little bit of a high when you have good posture and breath. And that's a big part of becoming a better player. But let's go back to last time and discuss a few of the principles of the pre-shot routine. And I know Dan is a new student today. I want everybody to meet Dan.
Hi,
Dan.
Hey, everyone.
Just go around and...
I was the missing link last week.
You just go around and everybody tell Dan your name. We'll start John. Martha.
Martha.
Kathy.
Jennifer.
Roman.
Dawn.
Chuck.
Jeff.
And Sonia. Oh, everybody got here. Awesome. All right.
You're still missing one.
This
All right.
is a
Oh,
tall
The guy from
guy.
Wickenburg.
John. That's right.
The other
John.
John.
Trope. Yeah.
The other John.
All right. Now, you'll notice I put the cue ball on the spot, but let's take a strike to make it a little bit more interesting. And this will help you with your pre-shot routine. You know, Dan actually watched my video from last week. So remember, every one of these classes are on my YouTube channel. So all you have to do is search on Peter Lhotka, my full name, and my channel will pop up. But it's a great way to, if you miss a class, you know, because pool is cumulative, all right? And by that, I mean you need to master certain basics before you advance to a higher level. For example, if you don't get your body in the correct alignment, it doesn't matter how good your stroke is, you're going to struggle, okay? So we're going to keep going back to that pre-shot routine throughout the class. But again, what I'm going to try to do is a drill that I often demonstrate. I'm going to shoot the strike ball to the spot down in the middle of the rail there, and I'm hopefully that strike is going to come back and hit the tip of my cue. And that will ascertain whether or not I hit the center of the ball. You know, that's one of the biggest issues is when you're not hitting the center of the cue ball. Okay. So it's kind of a drill to build your confidence, but also teach you how important it is to hit the center of the cue ball. So I'm using my pre-shot routine, focusing on the target. I can see that spot down at the end of the table. Right foot on that line, drawing all the way back, step into the shot, swing down. Now, as we get down in the shot, you'll notice, well, I feel pretty good that I'm perfectly aligned. But if I'm off just a little bit, remember, stand back up. You'll watch good players do this. They'll go until they feel perfectly on the line. And that's why we did that drill last time. I just had you getting up and down in the shot. Because when you get down, you can't really move your body a lot because then it throws everything off. One more time. Breathe and relax. On the line, swing down, and keeping my eye on the target all the way through. And then when I get down, if I feel confident that I'm right on that line, I'll take my warm-up strokes, pause. It's a great drill to learn. Now, you don't try to make the cue go through. You just let it go through naturally, because you don't want to guide the tip of the cue. Any questions about that? Anything else about the pre-shot routine? You had some good questions. You want to share with the class what you asked?
Well, one of the things that Pete mentioned last week was lining up his right foot And in fact, when he first started talking about it, I was standing over there, and I moved over here to watch his foot, and I still didn't quite understand it. But it's my big toe needs to. So I asked him, exactly where the foot goes, and it's my big toe then gets to go directly under my belly button, so that I stay in line with what I was aiming at when I was standing up and just standing on 2 feet. So, and I got 3 in the left pocket just fine, and then of course I forgot everything I learned when I got to the right pocket. But that's all right. It's a progressive thing.
3 out of 4.
I'll take it.
One thing I do need to say though is the eyes will dictate the position of the body, because the complicated part is that we all see a little different dominant eyes and things like that. But by practicing something like this, you'll notice, you'll figure out real quickly if you're hitting the center of the ball and you're able to hit the target you're aiming. Because if you can't, the ball's going to come, do all kinds of crazy things. All right, are we ready for stroke? We got the pre-shot routine down. Now, one last thing I want to say about the pre-shot routine is that eyes, do the hard work while you're standing up before a shot. That's where you really find your target line, or where you want to aim. And my particular thing, it could be different for you. Once I have that, my right toe is the key. I slide it over so my right big toe is on that line, and then step into the shot. Now, for other people, they might have another key. It might be a shoulder, it might be, the left foot toward the target. It could be a lot of different things. And I'm not saying the pre-shot routine has to be the same, but you want to develop one because it's your comfort zone. Once you get under pressure, I know Dan's playing league now. And the first time you ever played league?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Second season.
And there's a lot of pressure, right?
A lot of
Everybody's
pressure. Yeah. I do great in practice.
Yeah. And even Chuck mentioned earlier, he's running all these balls, but when he gets down to the 8, he's having a challenge,
Okay,
right?
I'm not closing. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well,
I'm winning 1 out of 4 games because I get up and I blow the last shot.
And what my advice would be for Chuck is to, trust and have faith in your pre-shot routine. And one thing you're going to notice about playing 8-ball, which is really frustrating, is the fact that, once you get out of line, you hit a bad shot, even though you make the ball, it progressively gets worse every shot after that. Because once you're out of line, you have to do these crazy things to get back. All right, what's the most important shot in the pool, would you say?
Making the 8-ball.
Okay, well,
First shot.
Yeah, doesn't it depend on what you're at the moment, right?
okay, let me make it multiple choice, okay? A draw shot where you bring the cue ball back, a stop shot, or a follow shot where you roll forward. Which of those 3 is the most important shot?
I didn't know.
I would say stop shot.
Okay, a stop shot would be this. In other words, I'm shooting the 10 in the corner, and I'm going to hit it almost perfectly in the center, like that, and make it stop right there. A draw shot is where I'm going to put my cue down below center and stroke through a backspin and bring the cue ball back. And then a follow shot is where I'm going to roll forward and say I want to get to maybe somewhere down there. This time I'm going to elevate my bridge. Like that. So that's the 3 shots. That's what we want to do in this class. I want everyone in this class to master those 3 shots. And they're all on the vertical axis of the cue ball.
So the answer to your question would be the most important shot is depending on where you want the ball to be
Well,
is what makes it important.
actually, my question was kind of a trick. One of those shots is crucially important to help you determine where the cue ball's going. And by that, I simply mean when you hit a stop shot at an angle, the cue ball will always take a 90-degree line off your object, which tells you exactly where the cue ball's going to go. So therefore, when you're practicing, I want you to practice stop shots today. All over the table, okay? Now, one thing you're going to learn is when you start mastering the stop shot, you're going to develop a stroke automatically. Because you notice when you do hit a stop shot, it has to be sliding along the clock to get a 90-degree line. And let me show you what I mean. If I shoot the 13 in the corner, my contact point is right there. If I draw a line from the center of the pocket to the contact point and make a 90-degree line, that tells me where the cue ball will go every time. So what I'm going to do is hit a stop shot at an angle like this, directly in the center. But I knew exactly where the cue ball was going. Since I knew it would hit the rail there, I knew it would come down here. So it teaches you how to control the light bulb, which is something you're all going to want to learn. All right.
To say the least.
Yeah. But back to the stroke itself. And feel free to grab your cue right now and kind of get a feel for it. But the cue has a balance point, doesn't it? If you hold it in the air about right here, it balances like that. Now, you would never hold that there when you're actually shooting a shot. You'd want to go back about 6 to 8 inches. Now, when I say that, that's kind of important to remember because a lot of people, their arm is sticking way back here and they're grabbing the back end of the cue. Some people's arms are all locked up forward. One thing that all good players do, and this is across the board, is the arm, the elbow, the hand, and the fingers hang straight down, straight down. If I start like this, I create tension in my arm and elbow. If I start like this, I create tension. In other words, the hand, the wrist, and the arm have to be dangling straight down. So when you swing it back, it's just like a pendulum. And again, you'll notice as I stroke the cue is staying level. And my hand and arm is relaxed. And that's why when you watch a good player play, they always seem like it's effortless. Because they're not all, with a tight grip and all that. They're pretty much relaxed with their arm dangling straight down, swinging back and forth. Okay, any questions about that so far? Yeah.
So the stop shot you just showed us.
Yeah.
First time you showed us, the ball just stopped right away.
Yeah.
Second time you showed us, you had a little more force on it because you wanted to go somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, how do you create more speed on your cue ball? That's a good question. You use more stroke. In other words, your backswing will be a little bit fuller and your follow through more extended. Let me show you an example of that. Let's say I have a shot like this to win the game. I have solids and 8-ball. All right, if I'm going to shoot the 7 in the corner, see how easy I did that? In other words, you don't. say, on the other side of the coin, let's say I have, I'll get the 8 ball out to make it more interesting. Let's say the 8 ball is down here, and there's 2 balls left on the table, and my strike is right here. Okay, I can't use a stroke like I just used. It was modified, wasn't it? It was just a, like that. In other words, the pendulum was a lot shorter and not as much follow through. But if I'm going to make the 10 and go 1, 2 rails down for the 8, I have to use more stroke, don't I? So, if I hit a stop shot, I know it's going to hit here. If it hits there, it's going to come down here and slide behind the 8, right?
I'm sorry, so it didn't actually stop. It kept rolling, so is that because it's at an angle?
Because it's at an angle.
Okay,
In other words, if it was here, I could make it stop.
right,
It's still a stop shot from here, but we call it a stun shot.
okay,
Because it's hitting the contact point at an angle, it'll follow the tangent line, we call it, at 90 degrees.
okay.
So whenever there's tangent line, then it would be a stun and
Yeah.
not a stop.
Exactly. And you can change the tangent line. How do you change a tangent line?
English.
Well, low and high. Yeah. Like, for example, if I roll the 10 in, rolling ball, instead of hitting here, it'll hit there. If I hit backspin, instead of hitting here, it'll hit there. That's how you determine where the cue ball goes. Okay.
That's how you determine.
Well, I know some of this stuff is stuff you've never thought about. But trust me, to learn this is going to help you to become a better player.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if I hit a stun shot here, you'll notice my stroke is going to be a little bit longer, even my warm-up strokes. And that's about where I wanted to go. Ideally, I could have come down here a little bit if I put a little bit more pull on the cue ball.
If you did what?
If I hit the cue ball a little lower, my cue ball would have come further down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that's what I'd like you to do, number 1 today, is I'd like you to set up and work with your partner on this, hitting stop shots from different distances. We looked at close ones, and this is what's going to help you develop a good stroke. Start with just real close to the ball. Then work up to a greater distance. Now you'll notice the stop shot gets tougher and tougher the further away you are from the object ball. Not only to make it, but to make it stop. Now on this one, you'll notice that I'm going to hit the cue ball a little bit lower, and I've got more stroke. All right, a couple of things I want you to be aware of when you're shooting these stop shots. I want you to be aware of the importance of staying down, okay? And remember we used the wooden stick last time? Now, one thing we can do to help you learn that, let me grab one of my tools over here. Let's see. Oh. I must have set it somewhere else. Well, we don't need it. It's okay. But when you're doing your pre-shot routine and practicing these stop shots, be cognizant of the cue tip going straight through and ending up on the cloth. In other words, a lot of you are going to notice when you do that, you're going to be in a hurry to see it, and your cue's going to end up way up here. But as you get farther away You need to utilize more stroke, don't you? Get some feedback. Make sure that Q-tip is going straight through. See, that time it came back a hair, didn't it? Because maybe I hit it a little bit low. But stay down on the shot until you hear the ball hit the back of the pocket. That's a good rule of thumb. And again, when you practice these straight in shots, you're really going to start lasering in your stroke and become more confident. Now, when you get these long shots like this, and you want to do a stop shot from a long distance, well, you're going to have to hit a little lower on the cue launch. Because you have so much distance between the 6 and the cue ball that by the time it gets there, it'll start rolling forward. So that little bit of backspin will make it slide as it hits the 6, and that'll make it stop. So watch how low I have to hit this to make it stop. And I didn't hit that so good, I almost missed it actually. You kind of see what I mean. But, you know, practice with your partner from different distances. Okay, one other fun thing we can do today, and I'll set it up here for you. And this is about, you know, mastering the center of the cue ball.
We don't go home until we make all of them, right?
Well, actually these are just there for show.
Okay.
But Chuck has seen this many times. And what we're going to do is line up, put an object ball on the spot, line it up with the side pocket here. Now the challenge for you with your partner will be to move the cue ball to whatever object ball that you choose. Like for example, I'll say, well, I want to roll my cue ball forward so I have position on the 15. So I have a straight in shot. This time I'm going to elevate and hit it slightly above center. And take my warm-up strokes. I don't need a whole lot of stroke. Like that. And I'll try to do that with every one of these balls. Pick a ball for me that you want me to put the cue ball in.
11.
Okay. All right. Now, if I draw it back to the 11, that's one of the harder ones, too, because I have to use backspin, right? So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my stance, is I'm going to lower my bridge so I'm hitting it below center like that. And I'm going to have to stroke it through with backspin to bring it back that distance. Tough.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Let's try the 13. And again, this time I'm going to have to raise my bridge slightly. You get the idea, right? Not only are you practicing the pre-shot routine and making these straight-in balls, but you're actually keeping in mind the importance of playing the white ball where it needs to go. You'll notice one thing as you do this, that when you draw the cue ball, it takes more stroke, doesn't it? And everybody loves the draw shot. It's the sexiest shot in the pool, right? Where you make the ball spin back, right? But it's not as predictable as a follow or stop. Draw shot is the most challenging of all the shots.
That angle there, I was scratching the side.
Yeah. Now let's say, yeah, that's a good one. Let's say I want to get position right here to play the 7. So I've got to be careful not to scratch. I almost have to hit it perfect on it. Wow. See how that works out. But anyway, have some fun with this. You can even make it a little bit of a competition. But set up all the balls on the side and just help your partner practicing those shots. You want to master the center of the cue ball. And the 3 shots you need to learn are the follow shot, the stop shot, and the draw shot. All right. Any questions on that?
I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you're lining up even the last shot that you were doing, and you've got the shot, you're practicing your stroke, and you're figuring out how hard to hit it, not too hard and not too soft. Do you ultimately focus on the cue ball or your
Good question.
object? I mean, your last look.
Last thing I say.
Your last
yeah.
look.
All right, let me go through that. That's a good one. Good question. All right, let's say I want to get position for the 6 ball to draw it back. The way I would do that, and it's also automatic now, I have trouble putting it in words because I've been doing it for 50 years. But if I had to put it in words, I'd tell you this. I follow my pre-shot routine, get down and take the warm-up strokes. And the warm-up strokes are really important, okay? Because you want to rehearse the actual shot, don't you? You're kind of feeling the amount of release and acceleration through the ball to make it draw back to here. But as I get down on the shot, my eyes are directly on the object ball, okay? When I get down on the shot. I'm seeing the target on the 7. But my eyes are going back and forth. They go back to the cue ball to make sure I'm hitting the center of the cue ball. As I do my warm-up strokes, they go back and forth. But right as I pause here, before the stroke, I got my eye on the 7 ball. That's the last thing you should see is the object.
The object.
But in the process of my warm-up strokes, you're actually going a little bit back and forth because you've got to hit the center of whitey. If you don't,
Yeah.
it throws the cue ball off. Okay? Good question.
Peter,
Yeah.
in terms of this question, he's talking about how hard you hit the ball, but what I'm seeing you do is there's not like changing your hardness by the speed, you're changing it by the length of the stroke. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
And I think most good players do it that way. Not all, but that's
Not
the
all.
way I learned. And I always feel like after you practice enough and play enough, it's not something that you even think about anymore. You feel it. Okay. Because you can't, while you're playing pool, you can't think, what's my arm and wrist doing there? That doesn't work. That's called getting up in your head. You want the stroke to become almost automatic by visualizing and feeling how much acceleration is required to make it do what you want to do. And there's only one way to do that. Practice, 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 right? That's why, part of your pre-shot routine should be visualizing exactly what you want to happen. And your body will conform to that visualization. But it takes a lot of practice. All right, a couple other things. I'll get you playing here real quick. Anybody have trouble with these shots? On the object balls on the rail. Does anybody have a theory or a philosophy on how to make those?
You hit the cue ball and the rail, or you hit the object ball and the rail at the same time.
All right, that's conventional wisdom, and that works, definitely. Anybody else?
Use the credit card.
Okay. Okay, you're exactly right, Dan. I'm not saying that's wrong because you will make the ball doing that. But a lot of times when you have a object ball on the rail, actually the Moscone Cup captain for the United States taught this. He said the ideal way, if your life depends on making that ball, you should hit the rail at credit card's distance toward the object ball. Now, why did he say that?
Because you're going to get a little bit of spin going.
Okay, that's part of it. But remember, when you contact an object ball first, it throws it into the rail and bounces it out and it'll hang out.
Oh.
Okay? If you hit the ball on the rail first, it's still going to go in, but maybe not as clean as it will slightly before. See, I'm hitting the 14 ball, credit card's distance before the 14, but the rail, the cue ball sinks into the rail. And that sucker will hold the rail all the way down. Trust me, try that today.
And then he distance up and down,
Yeah.
except he can't get by the center pocket.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of one of those mysteries of pool, but you know, it is a positive thing to actually keep that in mind when you have rail shots, because they are difficult shots, aren't they? And the worst thing you can do is hit the ball first. You're going to miss it almost every time. Because the ball first type of shot throws it into the rail to start with, so it usually ends up hanging out. Now, I want you to listen. Everybody disputes this, but I can hear the difference. You can actually hear when you hit the rail first. See if you can hear what I hear. Did it sound like I hit the rail first there? I did. Did you notice how I hugged the rail?
Yeah.
Let's try one more.
Kind of a thump.
Yeah. Now, if you hit the ball first, it makes a distinct sound too. But you notice that didn't waver. It hugged the rail all the way in. You hear the difference? Anyway, maybe I'm hallucinating or something. To me, I hear something different. Okay, the last shot. Here's another fun shot. Well, let's use the 8 ball, give it a little drama. How many of you had a shot like this and you looked at it and said, oh my God, what do I do? I'm shooting the 8 ball to win the game and I can't bank it. So what do you do on this shot?
Cut it.
Yeah, of course. But how do you cut it? What do you think about when you cut this shot?
Making it.
All right, good. I love that visualization. But there's a little mystery that a lot of people don't know, that when you have this knowledge, you're going to make them a lot more.
Do you hit the back of the ball when you cut it?
The back. I'm going to try to hit it as thin as I can.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to point out is when you cut a ball this thin, like to there,
Yeah.
there's friction between the two balls. It actually throws the 8 to this side of the clock. The cleaner the balls, the less that will occur. But most times when we play league, the balls are dirtier or whatever. But when you have a shot like this, to make them a lot more than you do, you have to overcut them. To make compensate for the friction between the 8 ball and the cue ball. So when I have this shot, I aim the ball way over here at the side of the pocket. And I'm 100% confident that it will go in the set. And again, that's true on all cut shots. But you got to remember that when you're cutting a ball, the friction between them makes it almost seem like it's a thicker hit. So I'm actually going to aim the cue ball to go right there. It should go in the center. Try this shot with your partner and see what I mean. Let's even make it more ridiculous. That's pretty thin, right? Cut it more than you think. You need to compensate. And these are good shots to practice too. And again, you can get behind the 11 and see the contact point. But use the contact point for the ball going in there, not there.
I can do that.
Anyway, have some fun with that. Grab a partner. Chuck and I will be coming around. But work on the stop shot, okay? To start with, then do the one where you're going to do follows, stop, and draw. And then maybe try some of those game-winning shots at the end. Have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mostly
Don't forget to chalk up after every shot.
Oh, good advice.
So how you doing there, Ron?
Hobbling along.
Hobbling?